Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the Psychotic Teenage Bloodbath, and this is a book we received in a previous Abominable book club, and it's by Carl John Lee, and it also says it has a foreword by Judith Sonnet, and it has a warning on the front which says an extreme horror novel. So yeah, this one I didn't really know what to expect. Obviously I knew it was going to have some gore, some extreme horror, but when you first open this book, the foreword explains, it says here, "Are you ready for this?" The foreword by Judith Sonnet, who's the author of Chainsaw Hooker, explains a little bit about the author, and it explains that this author was actually he wrote like indie horror films, like he was a script writer for indie horror films, but it explains that his ideas were kind of always too outlandish, too gruesome, too, you know, out there to be actually put into film. And so yeah, so he did script work for many low budget exploration films, a lot of which have never seen the light of day. And yeah, it just explains that basically it's going to be a pretty gruesome book, and it's going to be pretty graphic. In the front here, after the foreword, it has a little note here, and it says content warnings. This is an extreme horror novel. However, should you wish to view content warnings before proceeding, it's on the very last page, so be aware of the spoilers. So yeah, it has probably 1, 2, 3, like, is it 4? Oh no, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 content warnings for this book. Pretty much the worst things you could imagine needing a content warning for are in this book. And I did look at the content warnings before reading and was like, oh, I'm going to give it a go, see what happens. Because some of the warnings I thought one might not like those aspects of the book, but then having read it, it was really interesting. It follows a relationship between two girls who are in high school, and one of the girls, something happens to her and she ends up in a coma-like state, and she ends up in a hospital, and this is about a year later, and you're split between reading from the two girls' perspectives, her girlfriend who is still at this high school and her trapped in this coma. You hear mostly from the girl in the high school, to be honest, and little snippets from the girl in the coma. But yeah, it definitely gets pretty out there. It gets very outlandish. It kind of starts off like you think, oh, this is going to be like one of those, like, kind of like how it says with his script, like, you know, cheesy horror, over the top, over gory. Everything you could kind of throw in there was in there. As the title of the book suggests, the girl who is in the coma ends up having psychic powers and goes about wreaking revenge and havoc on other students and teachers, which then goes completely haywire and it gets completely out of hand. And yeah, it's a very interesting story. I liked the concept. I could actually see this in like one of those real indie, very graphic horror films. But in some aspects I can see why they couldn't make it into a film, because like I said, it just got too over the top and out there. But I did enjoy it. I did think it was a very entertaining read. I actually didn't find it as gruesome as what I thought it was going to be, so take of that what you will. Maybe I've read so many horror books and seen so many films, I'm just desensitized to this stuff. But yeah, I thought it was a good book. It was really interesting. Definitely not one of those believable horrors. It wasn't a kind of book that I read that, you know, gave me those horror chills. Like when you read a book, you're like, oh, this is really atmospheric, this is really I prefer more like psychological kind of horror books. This is definitely more the gore factor, extreme gore. And yeah, there's a lot of mutilation and graphic scenes in this, which, like I said, I don't find particularly frightening, but they were very entertaining. So yeah, kind of, if you are someone who gets triggered easily by graphic gore kind of content, then this might be a pass for you. The storyline was very basic. Like I said, it was very like cheesy 80s horror kind of storyline, and the characters were somewhat interesting. Some of them were a little bit flat. There wasn't much character development. I mean, it's only a short novel, it's only a few hundred pages, and like they said, 181 pages, and like it says, the author of this book was a screenwriter, so he wrote scripts and stuff for horror films, and you can kind of tell that in the way the characters are. There's not too much depth for them. It's very much more, as you're reading this book and you're picturing it in your head, like scene after scene, you can kind of picture it, but there's not too much depth in it. Like the characters, there's not all that much to them. Like relationships are a bit weird in this. You don't get a whole lot of backstory behind a lot of the different characters, so you don't really feel, or I didn't really feel, very sorry or sympathetic to many of the characters, because I didn't really care about any of them in this book. Even the girl herself, the teenage psychic, I found it difficult to find sympathy for any of the characters, to be honest. Which, I don't know, I find it difficult to relate to teenage characters as it is, because I often find them quite annoying and I find them making stupid decisions, which you do as a teenager, but like reading it as an adult, it can be a little bit frustrating at times. So yeah, just take it for what it is. A gory, trashy kind of horror novel, which was enjoyable. I would probably give it, I was going to say 4, but I feel like that's a little bit too high, because I feel like for me to give a 4 or 5 star, it needs to have a little bit more in it. But it was entertaining, so I'd probably go in the middle and give it a 3, which I think is a pretty solid rating. It's neither excellent but not disappointing. It's somewhere in between that. But yeah, definitely entertaining. I was worried when I read the kind of content warning that it was going to be a bit too graphic for my liking along certain aspects. I don't know if I should put I was going to put the content warnings in the description, but I'm not sure because it might spoil it for some people. But yeah, maybe if you're thinking about getting this book, maybe look up what the content warnings are in it before reading, and then if you read something that's not for you, then maybe pass. But like I said, there was a couple content warnings I thought, oh, I'm probably not going to like that. For example, one of them, shall I read out one of them? Yeah, there's like essay and stuff in this book, but it's not taken to the extreme. The graphic parts in this book are the deaths and the killings and the violence. Those are the main graphic things in this book. And yeah, I would definitely read more by this author. Like I said, I thought it was really interesting. It'd be fun to read some of his horror scripts, I think. But I can see why his stuff was difficult to put into films if it was that extreme and over the top. But yeah, overall a solid 3 out of 5. That's my rating. Let me know if you have read this book or are planning on picking it up. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on Psychic Teenage Bloodbath. So until the next video, as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye guys.